All right, we are now recording. Excellent. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this morning. As you can see, we are using a Zoom meeting function. We wanted to give you a kind of a sense for how to use different kinds of tech platforms. Many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with Zoom, so this is not going to be something new for you necessarily. I am going to go ahead and share my screen here, which I've got a few slides up and ready to go. So a few things to know, I'm gonna scooch this over here. A few things to know about today. First off, we wanted to introduce ourselves. Who are we? So my name is Sara Langworthy. I am the founder and owner of DevelopPlay LLC, where I do a lot of virtual event and video production and a lot of consulting and that kind of work. Katherine, you wanna say a quick hello?
Hello, I'm Katherine Castille, and I have been working in the arts world for about 18 years, specifically in marketing, communications, and fundraising. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Yay. All right, so I want to walk through a couple of basic housekeeping things before we dive into content this morning. I want to make sure that we also have all our participants. Okay, I'm gonna have to keep admitting people, so if I pop off for a second, that's why. People are coming in now, which is great. So a couple of basic housekeeping things I just wanna make people aware of. Today's meeting, as I said, is being recorded so that it'll be available to others as well. Some basic Zoom etiquette, please stay muted unless you're called on, unless we ask you to say something or to weigh in on something. I have a mute all button and I am not afraid to use it. Sharing with the group, we're going to be asking you some questions throughout the morning this morning. So if you've got examples that you want to share with the group, maybe something that's worked really well for you or for your organization, or something that you're like, you know, I need a little bit of help with XYZ. We may ask you, we may call on you, we may say, hey, Lisa, or hey, Cindy, will you tell us a little bit more about that? So if we do call on you, please feel free to kind of unmute yourself and share with the group at that point. But because there are so many of us here, we've got about 56 people registered for today's meeting. We just want to make sure we kind of keep the rumbles to a minimum and make this as streamlined as possible. So thank you for your help with that. Please use the chat box throughout the morning this morning. So if you have questions, pop them in there. As I said, we will be asking you questions, so please respond to those questions in the chat box. And yeah, holler at us anytime. Katherine will kind of be watching the chat box as I'm presenting and vice versa. In terms of the plan of action for today, so we're going to be starting with talking about virtual events. I will be kind of diving in both in terms of the strategy, kind of a larger look at how do you think about planning an event and what should it look like and which things should I do and those sorts of things. And then I'll be doing some demos. So I'm going to be showing you the behind the scenes of StreamYard, which is the platform that we used for webinars 1 and 2 of this workshop series, as well as something called OBS, which I think stands for Open Broadcast Software. I should have looked that up, but a couple of functional tools that you may use, especially for live streaming. I'll also talk a little bit about things for pre-produced events, podcasting, things like that. Then we'll kind of open it up for a general Q&A for a little bit. Then we'll have a dance break, because we do love our dance breaks here. And then Katherine will be taking over with talking about online funding models and online and other kinds of online ways to think about fundraising for your events and for your other efforts that you're doing. And then she'll open it up to some Q&A about that portion. Moving along here, we just wanted to remind you of the free resources that are available to you. We've got a couple of different handouts, things that we might be referencing a little today. Creating Vibrant Virtual Events workbook is up there. That is about, I think it's like 5 or 6 pages, and it kind of helps walk you through thinking through a virtual event. So if you've not grabbed that off the website yet, please do. We've also got some website 101 and things that you need to know for best practices in digital spaces. So please head over to bit.ly/arts and digital to check out those things. All right, so get your chat fingers ready. In the chat box, I would love to know what types of virtual events are you planning or interested in learning more about today. So if you can chat us and let us know. I'm going to pull up my chat box so I can see your answers. All right. I will give you a couple of seconds to talk about that. I think one of the interesting things about virtual events is that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, which is why I want to get a sense for what we've got, who's in the room today, what you're interested in. I'm seeing some fundraisers, poetry reading and book discussions. That's great. Pre-recorded plays, performances, those sorts of things. Okay. A conference for students in grades 3 through 8. Great. How to set up registration and payment for online courses. Okay, we can talk a little bit about that. Let's see, small cast, pre-recorded stuff, arts workshops, performances, virtual painting classes. Okay, we've got a whole gamut here. I love it. Lots of different things. Making pottery, performances, virtual music theory and lessons classes. Ooh, that's kind of fun. And then we've got some questions about platforms for ticket sales. So Katherine, you and I can talk a little bit about that later when we get to the Q&A portion of that section. But I definitely want to kind of talk about a little bit of sort of the strategy, higher level stuff with virtual events, and a couple of things to consider. So when you're thinking about your virtual event, are you trying to recreate an in-person experience in an online space and aren't really sure how to do that? Or are you kind of trying to branch into something new, new virtual programming that you wouldn't have necessarily done previously in sort of an in-person space, but you're not really sure if it's going to work? So let me know in chat a little bit about some of those things. I'm going to keep kind of moving to the next thing, but I'm curious kind of which direction are you going? Are you wanting to recreate or are you wanting to try something new? So please let me know in chat. I also want to emphasize that when you're considering these questions, this is always a valuable time to bring it back to your why, to think about your mission, to think about your audience, to think about some of these basic parts of your organization and why you do the work that you do, why you make the art that you make. That can also kind of help answer this question for you. If you're thinking about doing both and kind of aren't sure where to start, or if you're kind of like, well, I want to recreate this experience, but I also recognize that maybe that doesn't fit in a virtual space, so I guess we do have to try something new. You know, kind of tailoring and thinking back to your why and to your mission is always crucial here. So when I think about virtual events, I often think of this kind of as a spectrum. So on the one end, you've got kind of this sort of simpler and easier kinds of things, like maybe you're starting to do more social media postings. Maybe those are little behind the scenes videos. Maybe those are kind of sneak peeks into something that's coming up. Maybe that is you know, posts of some photos of your artwork or of, you know, your online classes, or, you know, those kinds of things. Maybe you're doing some impromptu live streams where you pop onto Instagram for 10 minutes and just sort of chat with people. Maybe, you know, you're doing more live streams on YouTube and trying to kind of cultivate an audience there. Those are things that are kind of a little easier and sort of a lower bar for entry, much simpler to get started on. Or on the kind of complete other end of the spectrum, you have this fully produced, really expensive virtual event, right? Where you're kind of trying to recreate. Maybe it's a big fundraising gala that you typically do every year, or maybe you're really trying to dive into the online learning and online class experience and make it something really vibrant and new and different for your students who are used to coming in person. You know, those experiences often cost a lot of money and take a lot of resources. And one thing that I like to encourage people to think about is that we sort of tend, I think, to go towards the like, well, I have to put all my eggs in this one big giant basket of this one thing that I can do. And I think sometimes we neglect the other side of the spectrum, where we don't always think about what are the little things I could be doing more consistently to kind of slowly build an audience before thinking about how do I dive into this big giant thing that is totally new and different for me, and, you know, embracing some new technologies I'm not so sure about. So if you're listening today and you are kind of on that like, I don't really know what I want to do yet side of the world, I hear you. It is a big kind of new environment for a lot of folks. So thinking a little bit about what are some of the low bar things that I could do, things that are relatively easy to do, relatively you know, in terms of cost friendly, a little bit easier to engage with that way before thinking like, well, now I have to produce this entirely, you know, giant event in order to reach my audience. You know, there are definitely advantages to doing some consistent content over time. Then you're not placing all your eggs in one basket, which is definitely sometimes a good thing. That said, those of you who are like, nope, we need to do, you know, a very specific event, a very specific kind of thing, you know, we're here for you too. So we'll be showing you some behind the scenes for how to do some of that. If you're still struggling with this question of like, what do I do? And I don't really know if this would work or not work, I would encourage you to think about and kind of draft out a little bit the different options that you have available, and kind of chart them out on this graph that you see on the screen. So we have high impact and low impact on one axis, and then few resources required and many resources required. And kind of think about, for your organization or for your situation, where do these various types of events and types of things land? And it might be different for different people too. It's not always going to be that certain events fall on one side of the spectrum and certain events fall on the other. And I encourage you to think about resources as being more than just money as well. So thinking about capacity, thinking about, you know, are there volunteers or community connections that you have that might be able to provide some of those things that you internally might be lacking within your organization. So these are just sort of some broader stroke things to be thinking about as you are planning your events. You know, I just wanted to give you a couple of things to kind of wrestle with this morning as we chat together. I'm seeing in chat a lot of both. You're both trying to do, you know, some events that you've done before, as well as trying to try some new stuff. I applaud your bravery and your creativity with this, and I think there are going to be some great options moving forward. Okay, so now it is demo time. So I wanted to talk through a couple of different options this morning, and so I'm going to pop over my screen to something else here real quick. But one of the things that we got a lot of questions about in the first session was about live streaming. How do you do live streaming? How does this work? What does this look like? So let me pull up my right screen here. So as I mentioned, we used StreamYard, which is a streaming platform that is, hold on, too many windows open, here we go. StreamYard is a streaming platform that has free options as well as a basic plan and a pro plan. All of which you can find on their website, which is streamyard.com. So when you get a StreamYard account, this is kind of what it looks like. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And there are some things that you need to set up ahead of time. So if you're like, you know what, I want to stream to YouTube and I want to set up a stream where I invite 2 other people to join me and we have a conversation about this artwork that we're doing. Great, cool. What you first need to do is set up a destination. So you can see here that I have my StreamYard account linked to a few different YouTube accounts that I am sort of a manager of and I'm working with clients on. So this one is my YouTube channel. And so for example, if I want to set up a broadcast, I head over here to broadcasts and I click create a broadcast and it tells me, okay, where do you want to broadcast to? The interesting thing about StreamYard is that it also gives you a record only option. So for today's demo, which I will show you, I set it up as a record only because I wanted to do a pre-recording. I want to have the functionality and the look of StreamYard, but maybe I don't want to stream directly right now. I want to take it offline. I want to edit it a little bit, some of those sorts of things. Many of you may be familiar with doing this in the context of Zoom, where you can record Zoom meetings like we're doing today, and then you can edit them later. I personally prefer StreamYard because of some of the functionality that I'll be showing you shortly. So just know that for, I'm on the basic plan, which if I look at my notes here is, how much money is that? $20 to $25 a month for a basic plan that allows you to have some of this other functionality, recordings, those sorts of things. But let's say I want to broadcast to my YouTube channel and we're going to call it testing. And then I say, well, you know, I think I want to keep this unlisted. Why would you put it as unlisted on your YouTube channel? Maybe this is something that is only for subscribers, if you have a subscriber program. Or maybe this is something where you don't necessarily want everyone in the world to be able to find this content. You don't want it publicly on your YouTube channel. You want to specify the link to make sure that it's at least a little bit more behind a paywall or behind, somebody has to give their email address to access this content, that sort of thing. This allows you to kind of have a little bit more control. It's not perfect with YouTube, but this is definitely an option to kind of make that content a little bit harder to find and more in your control. I say, well, let's schedule this for later. I can upload a thumbnail image, which is always really great because then like I can just pull up okay, let's do this one. Cool. All right, so now when somebody sees that my stream is upcoming, they'll see this lovely thumbnail image I created. And then, I can hit apply. Okay, cool. Now I've got my thumbnail. All right, when do I want to stream? Well, I can set this up anytime. So let's say next Wednesday at 5:15 a.m. Totally a great time to stream, I'm sure. But for all of you early birds out there. And then I would create this broadcast and it would connect directly to my YouTube channel and get all of the settings set up. So there's a little bit of startup in terms of getting that connection set up. But in terms of like scheduling broadcasts, once you've got that initial stuff connected, it's super easy. So then you say, okay, now I've got my broadcast. Today we've got our Arts in Digital Spaces demo. What does this look like? Okay, so now I'm going to enter my broadcast studio. So you're going to see what this looks like. So this is the screen that every guest gets. So anybody who logs in to your stream to be, your guest host will see this screen where they'll get a chance to set up their camera and mic, to mute themselves, which I'm going to do because otherwise we'll get an audio echo, and then enter the broadcast studio. So this gives you a sense for what the back end of StreamYard looks like. And there's a lot of different features here. We don't have time to dive into all of them, but I do want to show you a couple of cool things. So in this brand tab over here, again, with the basic plan for 20 bucks a month, you can update your brand color. You can upload your own logo to put in the corner. You see if I click on that, it pops up in the corner. You also have this option to do overlays. So overlays can look a couple of different ways. You can either do something like this that's just in certain corners, or you can upload a whole image that shows up like this. So for example, let's add myself to the stream. Hello, now you can see me in two places. So as you can see, this is what I would see if I am streaming. This is what it would look like on YouTube when I would hit stream. But if I want to say, like at the beginning of my stream, I want to give myself a little bit of a buffer, I can put up this welcome screen and wait like 10 seconds until my stream starts and then say, hello, everyone, welcome. This is much easier to do in StreamYard than something like Zoom, where you're trying to stream Zoom to YouTube. So there's a little bit more functionality, looks a little bit more polished that way. One of the other great things that you can do in StreamYard, I'm going to take myself off of here, is that you can do video clips. So you won't hear this video clip because it's going through StreamYard and not through Zoom, but I want to show you what this looks like so that you get a sense. So the cool thing about StreamYard is that it allows you to upload up to 5 minutes of video or 5-minute video clips, but they have to be under 100 megabytes in size. So they have to be pretty compressed, which affects the quality a little bit. That's kind of one of the downsides of StreamYard, but they do let you upload videos, which makes that a lot simpler. Katherine, would you please hop on? I want to give everyone a sense for what it looks like if we have multiple guests.
Here we go.
Woohoo. All right, so when I add myself to the stream, and then I add Miss Katherine, so you can see that this has got a little bit of a different layout. I can go to this view, I can go to this view, I can change views by dragging her over here, make her the feature event. If we are going to share a screen, let's say I want to share my website tab, I would go to Chrome tab, video your way. Okay, cool, I'm going to share that. Both of us are along the side, but you can see this web page that I'm sharing. You know, there are lots of different kinds of features in terms of how you show things. The other great thing is there's kind of a built-in green room. So if I'm like, okay, Katherine's section is done, I can just remove her from the stream. So she's muted, she's off camera, but she's still here. She didn't have to leave the meeting. She's still around, and I can bring her back in again. Hey, surprise, Catherine. So a few of the other kind of cool features here is this comments tab. So many of you probably were watching this and saw that we would often pop up your comments on the stream itself. So this is how we do it. You just click a button and it pops up and it says, oh, this is what so-and-so said, and now I can respond to that question. So that's got great functionality for that. You can customize your own banners. So if you're doing a fundraiser and you want to be, presenting a lot of great content, maybe you want to be, showing some images, you can still have a donate ticker along the bottom, which is pretty cool. There are also kind of static banners as well, if you want to do that. So again, it's just really simple kind of point and click stuff. You got to get used to it a little bit, right? Like with anything, but it makes life a lot easier to kind of put together a really polished, very nice looking kind of virtual event where you're bringing in somebody else from a different place. So those are some of the basics of StreamYard. I just want to give you kind of a quick and dirty tutorial on all of that. So Catherine, you can hop out of StreamYard. I'm gonna stop sharing this screen, and I want to pause for just a second to see if there are questions coming in about StreamYard specifically before I pull up.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions about how to compress a video and whether StreamYard helps with YouTube's latency issues.
So in terms of compressing your videos, there are a couple of services you can use for that. A VLC media player is really great. That one is free, and I believe lets you compress things pretty simply, where basically you open up your video in there and then you can export it, and you say, okay, I want to export it at this size or at with this setting to kind of make your video file smaller. So VLC, for those of you who are kind of newer into this world and need a free piece of software, there are sort of higher end products. Compressor is one that you can get on Mac that will kind of compress and adjust your files kind of however you need them. There's a lot more kind of flexibility in that. So there are definitely other ones. There's another one. It's not, I'm not going to come up with the name. It's in my brain, but I can't find it. But there are a couple of others that do that as well. So if you look for, free compression software, or, how to compress my video, something like that, you'll come up with a few different options, but VLC is a good one to check out. The second question, dealing with latency issues on YouTube. Oh, yeah. So StreamYard to YouTube, I think it has about a 15-second delay. So it's not a super long delay, but there is a bit of a delay between when you're saying something and when your audience sees it, and then when they respond. So whenever you're planning a virtual event and you're planning on streaming, you do want to build in a little bit of time. You may have noticed that in some of our streams, we did that early on, where we were really thinking, okay, so we're going to ask this question, and then we need at least kind of a minute of buffer conversation while everybody's replying to it, and then we can reference those comments. So there is a bit of a delay, but it's not, I would say it's not insurmountable. There are certainly situations where delays are way worse. So I like StreamYard. I use StreamYard all the time. I recommend it constantly to clients, and so that is something, that's something I just recommend everybody kind of give a try to. It's free. You can kind of play around with it and see if you like it. You might not, but that's the one that we have used the most. Okay, did you set up parameters in your YouTube channel? I'm sorry, what?
Says there are lots of training and help videos through StreamYard. So
yes,
make sure to check out those tutorials.
Yes, they are very good about that. They want people to use their product. Do I set up parameters in YouTube? Yeah, so there are a couple of those kinds of things that you want to set up on your YouTube channel specifically. But the great thing about StreamYard is a lot of that, it does it for you. So, you know, in your initial setup, you kind of want to make sure that you're following all of StreamYard's instructions for how to link your YouTube account. But then, like I said, you can upload the thumbnail directly there. You don't have to futz around with it on your YouTube channel, which is great. Makes life a lot easier. How well do these options, such as StreamYard, help babysit us through? It seems like all these things have their own quirks, and they do, right? This is the challenge with all of these, is that they each have their unique personality, so to speak, for how to do some of this work. So, you know, some of it is based on preference. What works for you? What do you want? What do you want out of your streaming platform? And the thing I've said again, I like about StreamYard is that it's relatively user-friendly. It's pretty easy to jump in. If you're new to streaming, it's a great sort of entry point for you, but that also looks really polished and is really great. So I want to be conscious of our time here. I do want to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of OBS. So OBS is like, if you want to step it up a notch, you want to take your streaming to the next level, so to speak. So I'm going to share my screen real quick here. All right, so welcome to OBS. This one has a steeper learning curve, but it is a free product. So OBS is built as basically broadcasting software. So along sort of similar lines as what you would have seen in TV studios back in the day. It has some of the same kinds of functionality pieces to it. You can stream directly. So there's a little bit of like setup that has to go if you're going to stream directly to YouTube. Or you can use a fancy thing called a virtual cam feature, which allows you to take whatever you create in OBS and put it through StreamYard. There are some extra hurdles involved with that, but if you want to not have to compress your videos to upload them to StreamYard, using OBS and porting that through StreamYard is a great alternative. There's a little bit of hoop jumping when it comes to the audio that you have to do, and I'd be happy to talk people through that if you have questions afterwards, if you're like, yeah, I want to try that. It is a little bit higher level than we need to get into today, but I did want to give you a sense for what OBS looks like. So on the left here, this is your preview screen. This is sort of the like on deck circle or the like just off stage, getting ready to run onto stage. And over here on the right, you see the program window. This is what your viewers are seeing when you're streaming. So the cool thing about OBS is that it allows you to build scenes. So down here in the left-hand corner where my mouse is, you'll see that I've created a couple of different scenes for my stream, that like things that I want to make sure I have available to pop back and forth to. So as you can see, I've got the intro slide up. So I would say, okay, I'm going to click start streaming to my show. And then let's say, okay, I want to have my video up next. So then I can transition. Hello, everyone. Now I'm here on my live stream. Isn't this great? It's so great to be here, blah, 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 right? And then let's say, okay, I want to do some rotating slides. I can transition to that. And now these slides are just going to kind of rotate on my screen while I'm talking in the background. Now, building these scenes is a little bit complicated, but it's actually a really kind of cool thing that you can do that in the sort of the background here. There are a bunch of different sources that you can link to each scene. And so if I push plus here, I want to add something. Okay, let's say I want to add an audio input, like my microphone, for example. I want to add a web browser. I want to actually show people my website in real time. I want to add a display capture. Maybe I've got two monitors and I want to show whatever's on my second monitor. I want an image slideshow like what you're seeing right now. Maybe I want to add some text to my stream. Video capture device, which is your webcam, for example. So there are a bunch of different options. If I've got any gamers out there, you can do your gaming porting in through here. So basically you build each scene with all of the sources that you want available, and then you can switch between scenes really easily. You can also play videos. Again, great way to play video. You're not going to hear the audio because it's coming through OBS and not Zoom, but you get a sense for what it looks like on your stream when you show a video and the transition between things. Then let's say I want to do something like this, which is a little more busy. It's got a bunch of different options on it. The cool thing about the stream with slides, so I've added this text thing, and I can on the stream be like, hello everyone. Nope, everything. everyone, there we go. And you'll see that it adds in real time. So it's kind of cool that you can just really have a lot of functionality, lots of different things on the screen. Like this over here is my window capture. So I'm showing you what I'm showing you. I'm getting very meta. I've got the scrolling slideshow, I've got my logo. So you can really customize how you want your stream to look by using OBS, and then say, okay, at the end of the show, I'm going to transition. Bye, everybody. See you later. And then it transitions to this, and then you would stop your stream and you're out. So it allows a lot more customization, a lot more opportunity to kind of play around and build it how you want. As I said, there's a learning curve associated with this. It is a free software. It has some limitations, which include bringing in an external guest. That's kind of the biggest challenge with OBS. There are a few ways around that, but I prefer, frankly, to do all the streaming part through StreamYard, because that allows you to bring in other people really simply and easily. But maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to do all my pre-produced content through OBS and use StreamYard as a way to share that more broadly. So, so those are just a few kind of examples and a little bit of demo on some of those things. Any other questions kind of coming in? Let's see, we recently streamed a CD release for a local musician, and we're easily able to place text on the screen while the musicians were playing, including posts from the audience. People said that was really helped them feel connected to the musicians. That's a great point, and I think that's one of the advantages of streaming, and that's one of the advantages of a platform like StreamYard, where you can make your audience feel seen in real time, right? They get a chance to kind of respond in the moment. I think StreamYard would be a great tool for those of you who are kind of doing online classes, for those of you who are thinking about any kinds of performances where maybe you want to include some pre-produced video, but maybe you also want to have a live host component. StreamYard's great for things like fundraisers, where you could upload several videos from, you know, people who've been affected positively by your work or who love your art, but also have people kind of chiming in from all over the place, who you bring on as guest hosts as well. So there's a lot of functionality and a lot of option there. I do want to kind of open it up to Q&A. If anyone else has either other platforms you've used that you've loved, would love to hear from you about that. And if you have any questions specifically about either these two platforms or other kinds of broader questions about streaming, definitely open for that. I didn't want to spend a ton of time on pre-produced content. I will say a couple of things about that, which is that in some ways it's a lot easier because there's fewer moving parts and you have much more control. But you do need to have somebody who, you know, knows how to edit video, or you need to want to learn how to edit video. But it's a great option if you've got people who are submitting different, you know, maybe in your classes, for example, they all submitted a video of themselves doing certain kinds of art and you want to showcase that. That could be a really interesting way to kind of piece videos together to show the impact of your work, and some of those sorts of things. In terms of software for that, you know, there's a lot of different free video options, video editor options. We've talked about these before. iMovie is one, DaVinci is one, Wondershare Filmora, I think, is another one that Adam has used previously. If you have, you know, a little bit more money and resources and want to kick some money toward to getting a video editing platform, Final Cut Pro is great. Adobe Premiere is kind of the competitor on the PC side. And for those of you who are just really curious about, okay, how do you go about structuring a video? How do you make a video? What equipment do you use? Those sorts of things. I do want to share, and I'll put the link to this in chat. I created an 8-week free tutorial series. It's an email series where you get an email from me every week that has a video kind of unpacking a different part of the video making process, all the way from what should I write about to how do I script or storyboard a video to how do I film, and then how do I edit, and then how do I release it. So if any of you are interested in that, I'm going to put the link here in chat. We've got a couple others bringing in now, a couple other folks who just joined us. Okay. Here is the link to that coming in. So if anybody is interested in that, it's totally free to join and to get those emails. So you may find that helpful as well. I do want to bring us back over to slides here while I respond to some of the questions that are coming in, because I have, come on. my final takeaway is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Try something. And then I just wanted to leave this up while we chat a little bit about various questions and those sorts of things. What do we got, Catherine? Anything jumping up?
Yeah, you went through some good free video editing software as well as some paid options too. What's your opinion on Screencast-O-Matic? Do you have insight into how much streaming is used by the elderly population?
So I don't have any insight or data into live streaming for the elderly population. I think in some ways it depends on what you're doing and how you're doing it. If they are able and comfortable clicking on a YouTube link or clicking to your website and watching a video, their comfort level with the technology, it doesn't really matter because you're just pushing them to a video. In terms of style, I think, we always need to go back to that question of who is your audience. So for some audiences, I would say go really energetic and peppy, right? And for others, I would say, no, you want to be much more thoughtful and calming and that sort of thing. So just kind of depending on who your audience is, and what kinds of things they are looking for from you, you can tailor your live streaming to look and feel a different way depending on your audience and what they need.
As far as data, I'll just chime in. Wolf Brown has done a really great ongoing study, and one of the things that Alan Brown has shared is that there does seem to be a bit of a generational divide. We talked about that a little bit in the previous webinar, but just to expound on that, if your audience is in a 55 plus ish demographic, just try to make it as easy as possible for the end user who's going to be, consuming whatever content you're creating. Just take out as many steps as you can, have clear directions whenever you can. And be ready to help if people have questions about how to get on your stream or access your content, because the data is showing that there is a little bit of a divide. So make sure that you have a really clear understanding of how to help people access your awesome content.
As for the question about Screencast-O-Matic, I don't know it specifically, but I am guessing based on the title, and I think I've looked into it once, that it is more about screen capture. So recording what is happening on your screen as opposed to as much interface with your camera. I could be wrong about that. So for some things, I think it could be really great for those of you who are doing different kinds of digital art, for example. You maybe are creating art in kind of digital ways using Adobe or something like that, and you want to showcase what that looks like. Something like Screencast-O-Matic could be great for that. So it really just depends on your art form, but I don't know anything about it specifically in terms of how it works with streaming and how that all looks out. Let's see. Have you connected StreamYard? Oh, copyright. Yes. Well, I'll come back to that one in just a second. Have you connected StreamYard broadcast to 2 or 3 platforms at once? Yes. So with a basic or pro account for StreamYard, you can connect to 3, 4, 5, I don't remember, an obscene number of things at once. So sometimes you might want to stream both to YouTube and to Facebook at the same time. StreamYard does let you do that. I haven't seen any major degradation or stream issues doing that, but I've not done that a ton. I've done it a little bit and it's worked generally pretty well, and I've been pretty happy with it. You can stream to multiple Facebook accounts. You could stream to multiple YouTube channels. So you can set all of that up with a slightly paid account in StreamYard. And then the question on copyright infraction. Oh, copyright. First, I will say I'm not a lawyer, so I cannot give you legal advice. I know in the music world especially, this is very complicated. I would guess in the theater world as well, that this would also be complicated. If you are, basically, I would recommend everybody do their due diligence and look into, in your particular field, what copyright attributions are necessary. If you are just looking for example, some filler images to put into your stream, or looking for things that might go well into a pre-produced video, I highly recommend unsplash.com is a great place for stock footage. All of the photographers there upload and sign off that their images are then going to be in public domain. So, you know, that is a great place. Pixabay is another one. So if you're looking for really safe kind of copyright-free stuff, those are a couple of great places to go to start with that. You know, I would say be careful with copyright, because especially some of the bigger platforms are kind of struggling with that a little bit. And are, you know, there are ways for copyright to kind of really mess with your channel, especially on YouTube. And so be cautious, but also, yes, it's a very kind of wild, wild west, and it's really murky and unclear. I'm sorry, that's not a great answer. It's not the one you wanted to hear.
And then some examples of stuff to watch for ideas and
yeah. I mean, there are a few things that I have produced that I know of. Catherine, if you know of any, I'm super curious on what ones you have found as well. I can certainly put a playlist to some of the events that I have produced or that I've been a part of that have done different kinds of things with fundraisers, fully pre-produced events, kind of hybrid events, those kinds of things. So I can certainly do that. Mira or Myra, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you for sharing your link there. People should definitely check that out as an example. And if anybody else has ones that you're like, oh, I'd love to share my stuff, and you know, as an example, please go ahead and include that in chat for others who are looking for examples for how to do this. So, any other questions at this point? No? No?
You were so thorough.
Or people are bored. I'm not sure which. A little bit of both. If you have questions, you know, I'm going to be around in chat, especially as Catherine takes over here in a little bit. For those of you who jumped in late, first of all, apologies for not bringing you in right away. If I missed that, I was presenting, and so I had too many windows open, but I was trying to bring you in as I saw you pop in. So thank you for joining us. Do know that this session is being recorded, so you will be able to go back and review the portion that you missed. So just as a heads up. All right, any last questions? Otherwise, we're going to migrate to a dance break. Now, did I share this correctly? We're going to find out. I don't know if I shared this with sound. Who knows? All right, I'll stop the music, and I will just say we're going to take about 4 or 5 minutes here. We'll come back at, what do you want, Catherine? 10:50? No, 10. What's math? 10:50?
10:50 sounds good.
All right, that sounds good. So feel free to take a couple minutes, you know, stretch break, dance break, whatever you want to do. Catherine and I are going to do a little bit of behind the scenes swapping of some roles. So we will be back in about 5 minutes. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like we need Jeopardy music or something.
Agree. I can
Could have put
just
the dance break back up, but
as everyone is coming back to the webinar, hello again. I do want to let everyone know that I have a dog who gets very riled up at the mailman, and he is across the street right now. So if there is barking, that means he's at my house. Luckily, I know my mailman and we have a great relationship. So don't worry about him and don't worry about my dog. Everyone is fine. But this is authenticity, right? This is like real life in the pandemic. So we're just, bringing on the authenticity. So we are at 10:50 and we're going to go on ahead and jump in. Let's see if this screen share is going to work. All right, can people see me? Okay. All right, so we're going to be talking about digital revenue models. And one of the things that came out of the last couple of webinars is that a lot of people just had general questions about how to price things and how to monetize their content. So hopefully we're going to dig into that a little bit today and get to some of your specific examples and specific questions. So here we go. So just a reminder, we went over this in the previous webinar for folks who were able to attend that, but the digital space is a creative imperative, and that is both exciting and potentially intimidating. Your art is a business, and businesses need revenue to stay in business. So that means that you, as an art making business, need to have revenue to keep making your art. So don't think about this as something that's a holding pattern. Don't think about this as coasting. Think about this as an exciting opportunity to showcase your art in a new way, and a new way that can really expand your audiences, which we will talk about again a little bit later. So first thing I want to do is talk about the questionnaire review. You may recall that in phase 1, you completed a survey, and I just wanted to go through some of your answers regarding digital revenue models in both the earned side and the contributed side. So I'm going to show on the next slide a list of some earned revenue models. Here's the mailman. Okay, I think the moment has passed. Everybody's okay. So I'm going to show in just a minute a list of some of the earned revenue models that we asked you about, and I would like to hear in chat which one you think people are using the most as far as this group of respondents, and which ones do you think people are using the least. So here's the list. And I'll just give a couple minutes. Sarah, if you could help me out in the comments and give a little narration, if you would.
Yerp. Okay, so we have one vote for free, as I'm assuming being most.
Okay.
All right, we've got free and then pay what you want. So I think free being the most, pay what you want being the least. Others suggesting pay what you can being the most. Most people saying free as being the most used. We have one vote for individual being most and online store being the least. One person says subscriptions. Another person says subscriptions for the least. Ooh, we've got some heated debate going on in chat. I like it.
All right, well, shall we take a peek at
Yeah.
what you actually responded that you're trying and not trying? So these numbers represent first what you are thinking about trying and what you are actually using. So the first number is what you're thinking about using. The second number, what you're thinking about using or already using. The second number is what you aren't sure about or aren't using. So if you said subscriptions is the one being the least used right now, you are correct. And if you said that free is being used the most right now, you are correct. And then you can see how everything in between kind of falls in line. Now, when I see this picture together, what I see is that we're very comfortable giving away our art for free. And what I also see is that we're really comfortable selling tangible items. So the online store is something that we feel pretty good about. And then we're also pretty comfortable about letting our audiences decide what to pay for our art. So that's this pay what you want. Just a reminder, I use pay what you want rather than pay what you can, because that way it kind of takes out the socioeconomic coloring of what pay what you can might imply. So that just kind of depoliticizes it a little bit. Yeah, so interesting. All right, let's look at the contributed revenue side of things. So same question, which one did people respond that they are using the most, and which one did people respond that they are using the least? And here is the list of 3 models that we talked about in the survey. So Sarah, I'd ask for your help again.
Got my eyes peeled on the chat. Gretchen asked a good question, which was this only through online? I don't think we were specific about that in the questionnaire, so
nope,
people may have interpreted that.
Yep, it was just which ones are you considering, which ones are you using, which ones are you unsure about?
So we've got one vote for most being fundraising events, least being direct appeal.
Okay.
Let's see, suggested donation is the most, direct appeal the least. I'm seeing a lot of direct appeal coming in. I'm not sure whether that's for most or least. Fundraising most, suggested donation least, most for fundraising, least for suggested donation. So that seems to be kind of a common idea for folks. So yeah.
All right, well, survey says, here's how it all panned out. So again, that first number is what people are using or are considering. And that second number is what people are unsure about or are not even considering. So if you said direct appeal is being used the least, you are correct. And if you said that the suggested donation is being used the most, you are correct. Although I think it's very interesting that this split is much closer on the contributed revenue model side. So, you know, again, looking at this as a full picture, what I'm seeing is, one, we are not comfortable asking for money in any way. We're not very comfortable with that. So we're going to dig into that a little bit. And also, we are way more comfortable letting people decide how much to donate with the suggested donation versus making a direct appeal, which is maybe not surprising. So just let us know in chat, what does this make you think about? Yeah, what does this data say to you about your digital revenue models? What does it make you think about what you're trying or not trying right now? So let us know in the chat.
Catherine, while people are responding here, I will say, it's like, for me, this was like a, oh, kind of moment. And as a creative person, I felt a little convicted of this too, because I have definitely been in the camp of like, but I don't want to ask people for money. It's weird.
Yeah.
And that is, it's a thing. And so I definitely understand it. And I was also like, oh no, we have work to do.
We do have work to do. And, you know, like I said, a lot of folks in the previous webinar were just kind of saying, I don't even know where to start. I kind of know that I don't have a great contributed revenue plan, but I just don't know where to start. So we're going to try to unpack that today.
So
Any
we've
comments
got a couple. Yeah,
yeah.
we've got a couple great things. So we use a mixture of sustainer-based funding and grant applications targeted toward virtual funding. We're trying a little bit of everything. We haven't tried much, so unsure what to do when we are used to live fundraiser events, right? So how do you translate that energy and that moment into something that is online? That's definitely a question. How do we continue to navigate all of this with the economic downturn? Catherine, that's something you and I have talked a little bit about as well. So the apprehension around dictating cost for an audience seems to be universal, maybe driven by a fear that it's easier to say no to a specific ask. That's a great point. Great comment there. People seem to disregard direct appeals. We're overloaded with emails and even traditional mail and tend to delete them without looking.
That is interesting, and I'm going to challenge that perception momentarily.
Based on one of your previous webinars, I added a pay for another option to registration, and I actually got a few. Yay! That's awesome. Lovely to hear that. Let's see, we need to get better at their direct appeal. We've been trying to get better at asking more directly. It's hard, it takes a lot of practice. Catherine, will you tell us how to do this?
Yes, let's talk through some of this, everybody. The first thing I want to do is just have some affirmation time. And don't worry, if this is too touchy-feely for you, I'm coming back to the data just shortly. Just hang in there. But I think we all believe in our art, and we need to believe that we believe in our art. So let's have some affirmation time. Let's breathe in deeply, and then exhale on a count of 5, slowly. Okay, now I want you to say these things with me. My art, my work, my organization is awesome. My art, my work has value because it's awesome. And people like my art, my work, and my organization because it's awesome. You are all fantastic. You have chosen to be artists and arts administrators, and that is fantastic. And yes, we are in an economic downturn. That is a real fact. And the pandemic has really revealed in a much more public way the inequities in the world. But I say that is exactly why we need art right now. It's vital for living a beautiful, well-rounded, more human life. So let's just stand behind what we're doing more. I think we can all do that. Okay, so thank you for this affirmation time. I hope you feel good about it. If you don't, here's some data. We're gonna set the stage with some national and local data, okay? So first things first, some national research that is very reassuring, okay? Let's look at these numbers. 70 to 75% of audiences are open to digital programming. That's amazing. That's huge. That's fantastic. Okay, half of audiences are willing to pay for live streamed events. 60% of audiences are willing to donate to arts organizations. And searches for live streaming videos on Facebook have increased 330% in 1 year. There is demand for this, people. There are people out there who want to pay for your art. There are people who already love you who want to pay for your art. So remember that. Remember that you already have a group of supporters who are right there on your email list, in your Facebook community. Reach out to them. Okay, now that's national research, which is great. It all paints a relatively positive picture. Let's look at some Minnesota research. So I referenced earlier that Wolf Brown has been doing an ongoing study. Oh, do we have another mailman? Wolf Brown has been doing an ongoing study since the summer to learn about specific areas of the United States. And one of the areas that they looked at was Minnesota. So this is research of Minnesotans who are arts attendees and arts supporters. So 74% of Minnesota audiences who responded to the survey are likely to purchase live stream event tickets. So if you are not asking for a ticket fee for your events, you're missing out on 74% opportunity right here. And that was back in September. In October, that percentage increased to 83% of Minnesota audiences being willing to purchase and likely to purchase live streamed events. So think about that. 79% of Minnesota audiences want to watch digital arts programming. Very cool. And 96% of Minnesota donors, so this is people who have already donated, plan to donate at the same or a higher level right now. 96, okay? So let that sink in as we move on. So let's talk a little bit about earned revenue models. So
Katherine, can I pause you for just a second?
Please.
Can you bring up your participants window? We had a couple people who dropped off the feed and who need back in again, and you have the host. Otherwise, I can reclaim the host, but then it gets complicated. This is why Zoom is not my favorite platform for things like this.
Okay.
Yes.
Participants, admit.
Yes.
Admit.
Get everybody back in.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yeah, no worries. If that happens again, people just ping me in chat. Yeah, when you share it, it goes away. Zoom.
I don't
anyway,
know.
Sorry, continue.
Okay, thank you. No, thank you for letting me know. All right, I'm gonna go back to a screen share here. Here we go. And now we're gonna dive into some earned revenue models. Okay. So free, that was a popular one. And the online store, that was another popular one. So let's talk through that. So 79% of respondents in our survey for this webinar series said that they either plan to or are using the free revenue model. That is fine. I am not here to criticize you for choosing free. There are plenty of good reasons to use free, including if your goal is to expand your audience, to increase awareness about who you are and what you do. So again, not a criticism of doing things for free, as long as you are not undervaluing your art. Your art still has value. Return to those affirmations. Your art is awesome. So yeah, let's think about when are the times that giving away your art is the right thing, and when are the times that maybe it's okay to monetize. One of the examples that I like to use is Contus. They are, for people who don't know, they are based here in the Twin Cities, and it's a group of 8 to 10 men, depending on the season, who sing incredible programs of music. They have done a great job combining these models. So if you haven't thought about combining models, think about that. They have gotten over 2 million views on their completely free COVID sessions that they have been recording as they quarantine at Camp Contus in, and so, you know, that's incredible awareness for that organization. And they have also been charging a pay what you want with a suggested amount of $20 per household for their specific concerts, of which they're planning to have 3 virtual concerts. And then that gives you access to watch it either when the program is premiered or you have access to watch it for a few days or weeks after its premiere. So think about combining when is the moment to increase your awareness, to increase your followers, and when is the moment to monetize your art. And then just thinking about the online store, obviously this is great. Oh, one more thing about free, the free model. If you're going to do 100% free art, you're gonna need to get comfortable with leaning on contributed revenue. So if you are doing free, if that is the choice that you've made because it's in your mission, et cetera, that's fine. But try to ramp up your comfort level with relying on contributed revenue. Okay, now I'll move on. So online store, of course, this makes sense if you are someone who makes a tangible thing as part of your work. So that makes a ton of sense. We talked about this a little bit in the previous webinar. Think about opportunities to show your process in making that art. Not only does that show how thoughtful and how much time and energy goes into making what you're making, but people really love to see that behind the scenes stuff. And it might be an opportunity for you to monetize in another way. You're just diversifying your revenue if you can have an online store, but you're also generating this content that may or may not be behind a paywall. So think about that. Pay what you want pricing. Again, it's a pretty popular one that people are using. Just make sure that you have a suggested amount. You know, it's like one skosh more structured than doing something for free. So just make sure that you do have a suggested amount. And a lot of times people are going to give more than that suggested amount. And then sliding scale, which is kind of similar to pay what you want, except you set a lower and upper limit for what that suggested amount is. And people can choose within that range where they'd like to pay for your content. And then individual tickets to events and classes and subscriptions to a season of events and classes. These two are pretty closely related. They work really well when you're doing something with a fixed date, or if you want to give access, like I was referring to the Contus, what they've been doing with their virtual concerts, where you can either watch, you know, live during the premiere, or you can get access to it for a certain amount of time afterward. You do want to remember copyright if you are doing music or you know, theater in this way, just to make sure that you're in line with whatever copyright laws that may affect your particular work. And then monthly memberships are really similar to subscription sales, but they aren't tied to a fixed event. So this is great, especially for those process things, those behind the scenes things that I was talking about earlier. So think about what your content options are, and monthly memberships might be great if you think you're going to be able to, you know, have a content calendar that's really regular. So if you know that you're going to be able to release 4 pieces of content, you know, you can make sure that you do a monthly membership for XYZ amount, and each month your members are going to get those 4 pieces of content. So I want to pause here for a minute. Is there anybody willing to talk through some stuff that, oh dear, here we go. Is there anybody who's willing to share an example of something that they tried that worked really well, or something that they tried and maybe it didn't work really well, but they learned something really valuable?
Catherine, while we're waiting on that, we've got a couple of great comments and questions and things coming in. There's a little banter happening between people, which I love to see in chat. That's my favorite. So Ivy has been doing some individual classes and charging for those online. There were some questions about like, well, how do you do that if everything, like there's so much free stuff on YouTube? So there was some back and forth about, you know, what are you charging for? Well, are you charging for that expertise, the guided experience, the you know, engagement with your people who are in your class? They're getting your access to you more one-on-one, those kinds of things that people are willing to pay for. Yeah. We also, Ivy also said that she's getting some repeat people. So that is a great example of the flywheel. Well done, well done. Gretchen says that sliding scale is working well for them. They're seeing a higher average price than if we had only charged our regular ticket price.
That's
That's really
great.
interesting. That's awesome. I love that. Let's see. Jane says we recorded radio concerts this summer, aired them on a program, then posted individual acts, audio and video, on Facebook following the radio airing. We increased our audience and our Facebook donations, as well as our sponsorship letter appeal, and have brought in a lot of revenue that way.
Yay!
Congrats, Jane. Awesome.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah, so there's some of those great things that are happening. You know, Ivy or Jane, either one of you, we'd love to hear a little bit more about that. If you're willing to share with the group, let us know in chat. And then also, Michael had a great question that I think you're going to get to, Catherine, but I'm just going to tee it up for you. How does one access donors who are not comfortable with technology? And then how do we access that 96% who are going to give more? And then kind of related to that, do we have experience with ask letters or ask videos as a model for earned revenue? So that will, yeah.
Yeah, that's great fodder for our contributed revenue conversation that is going to be coming up next. Thank you for those fantastic examples.
Jane would be happy to share a little bit more if you want.
Oh, please, Jane. Yes. Love to hear from you.
Go ahead and unmute yourself and go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we were very fortunate in that we had already been working with a local radio station and were airing radio theater programs once a month. So we were very fortunate we already had that connection. And when the summer started and everything was shut down, we do most of our programming in the summer. We were able to divert our regional grants to a different program, and we started working with students as well as adults to prepare them, and they picked out selections, and we had recording dates. We met, and following very stringent social distancing protocol and whatnot, we brought individuals into the studio one at a time, recorded them both audio and video. And then we programmed these pieces and aired them in a half-hour to 45-minute, usually, show, a variety show on air. It wasn't all music. We had kids who were involved in the speech program through the high school that got shut down. So these poor kids have been working on these speeches all year, and we were able to offer them a platform to then perform that to the public. So that was really a wonderful thing to do. We had people that were families that did actually they did little theater segments. So they'd do a scene, or they would do some music from some show. And so we aired all of this stuff, and then following that we would post the acts on our Facebook page, and so that people could go in and watch them. They were sharing them all over the place. We had one act that got over 1,200 hits. We're still wondering about that. But so our audience, our online audience, and just our general vibe really took off with that. So when we appealed for money through Facebook, we had pretty good response to that. And then we always send out sponsorship letter appeal in the fall. We did that. That is still bringing in money. And so it's been really, our mission is to satisfy people on both sides of the curtain. So we want to make sure that we, give our actors and our performers opportunities, and that also we satisfy our audience. We keep them in mind. And I think we kept our mission very well in focus. And the other thing that we did, we took a little money and we made segments on, we called them TSA, theater service announcements. We recorded those and aired those on Facebook. Those got a lot of just people involved that ordinarily hadn't. We did a backstage tour that was really popular, which surprised us. And we just had a really great summer. It was very different. It was nail biting at times because we had no idea what we were doing, but we've decided we're still running the weekly radio shows. So it's been a very interesting and, thank God, fulfilling season for us that will continue.
That's awesome.
Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. And one of the things that I really like about what you've been doing is that you are combining these ideas. You're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You're really being flexible and adjusting and adapting as you
Oh
learn.
yeah, you know, I forgot to even mention the fact that we offered online voice lessons to students, and it was tough, but you know what? We just made it work. We offered it to kids who are usually in our summer programs, and we used Zoom, and it was messy and complicated at times, but we used what we had and we made it work. And I ran a bunch of those lessons, and I saw kids really bloom, because I think they were kids who were a little bit unsure of themselves, are unsure of themselves, but they gained this personal time with me. And then when we recorded them, it was a safer environment. I think those kids will come back next year and be ready to just audition with us and make it happen.
Thank you, Jane. And that was a great segue into what I want to talk about with contributed revenue models. So let's dive into this. Sara did a great job talking about virtual events in the previous webinar as well as earlier today. One thing to take away, and I'm going to repeat this a lot, so hopefully we're going to, really get to this today, but ask always, ask often. So if you're having a virtual event, there probably should be an ask, and especially if there wasn't a ticket price for the event. Ask for a donation. There's an easy way to do that. You can have kind of like a curtain speech before the program begins. You could use some of the cool technology that Sara talked about earlier and have like a banner at the bottom or a ticker at the bottom. You could have it in the pre-event slideshow that's going as people are gathering before the event. Just make sure you're asking. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And I also know that we're short on time, so I'm going to zoom through a bunch of this. There's also exclusive content to think about that can either be behind a paywall for donors, or it can be behind it can be behind like a login so that you're making sure you're getting everyone's information. And so you can think about whether donors at a certain level get access to a particular exclusive thing. That could be exclusive content, exclusive music, exclusive behind the scenes information about a piece of art that you created. It could be an entire program. It could be a Q&A with the artist. There are a lot of different things to try there. And you can say, what's the size of your organization? What's the nature of the content that you're going to present? And that's what can inform what that level of donation or that ticket price should be to get that exclusive content. If it's going to be a conversation, you probably want to keep that smaller. So hike up that donation level to get access to it. And then it's also important to think about what your goal is for your particular appeal that you're working on at the time. So is your goal to attract new donors? Is your goal to deepen relationships with existing donors? Is your goal to increase your leadership level gifts, or to get people from that just below leadership level to leadership level? And that can inform the kind of content and what level you offer that content as well. Also, let's talk about email solicitations. Yes, you can ask for donations via email. You can. You really can. So don't forget that email is in your wheelhouse. For folks who were talking about comfort level with technology for people in an older demographic, One of the things to keep in mind is that email is the #1 channel across all age demographics, okay? So even older users are very comfortable using email. So just don't forget that it's a resource and it is a place where you can certainly ask for donations. It's also a place where you can cultivate deeper relationships with your donors and your potential donors, because you can storytell there. You can show the impact that your work is having in the world. And that's in some ways just as important as making the ask itself. Because when you can show the change that you're making in the world, the positive change that you're bringing to the world, that's inspiring, and that galvanizes people to action. So it's not even an ask, but it might result in people being inspired to give because of the way you tell your story. And then, and we're going to talk about this more, email is also a really great way to follow up with results. So it's a great, easy way to thank people. It's a great, easy way to say, here was the outcome of this giving day or this campaign or this project that you all funded. So it's just a great way to not only make an ask, but also keep people informed and engaged with the work that you're doing. And then lastly, social media solicitations. Yes, you can ask for money on social media. You really can. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, how it can work in tandem with some of those other channels that we were talking about. So one thing that people were talking about a lot in the chat from our last webinar was, if we ask too often, people will go away. And that is a really pervasive misconception, okay? So I know that if you have attended that webinar from the phase 2 sessions, you may have already seen this slide and may already know this answer, but how many times do you think that you can ask donors for a donation before there is a negative effect to the relationship? So let us know in chat.
Katherine, we've got some great comments happening in chat. A couple examples for people to check out about people who are doing this work really well, which is great. Hal has been sharing a little bit about what they have been doing at Commonweal Theater, using email, social media with video, and even hard copy. The key is being able to articulate your story, your mission, and connect with donors need to support your work. So what is your art doing and what is your impact? Great.
Yes, points. Exactly. All right, so
we've got 7, we've got 21 to 27, we've got 70, 4 times a year.
Somebody was paying attention, 21 to 27 times. So can we try reframing? Research shows that you can ask 21 to 27 times a year. You can ask your donors 21 to 27 times a year without negatively affecting that relationship. In fact, research shows that the more you ask, in some cases, the better your results will be. So there have been studies that show when people get more mailings, when people are asked more, they will donate more. So I think we just need a reframe. If we don't ask often enough, we're actually leaving money on the table. And some studies have suggested that we're leaving as much as 35% of contributed revenue on the table. That's a third. That's more than a third. So let's really try to reframe where we are about asking for donations. So if you're wondering what a donor engagement cycle might look like with 21 to 27 asks, it's a flywheel. Again, if you had a chance to watch the webinar from before, I'm a fan of flywheels. And so it's inspire, and then learn, and then ask, thank, and then share the impact, which is inspiring. So you can learn more and you can ask more and you can flywheel. So think flywheel, and just building a campaign. A lot of people had questions about how to build a campaign. My guess is that there aren't many people who are doing campaigns that have 21 to 27 asks in them. So just to dig into that in our last 2 minutes, you want to look at a multi-channel strategy. So you want to be doing direct mail, you want to be doing email, you want to be doing social media, you want to be doing the event fundraising. It's really a combination of all the things. And what you want to be doing is making sure that at any given campaign moment, that it all feels really cohesive. So that's called omni-channel marketing. And what's fundraising but just a super extra specialized form of marketing, right? That is what fundraising is. So think about it as an omni-channel campaign or appeal. So your letter is maybe letting people know that Give to the Max Day is coming up. You're talking about what you've been able to do from past Give to the Max days. And then you send out an email reminder, maybe the day before, 2 days before. And then you have your social media campaign that's online and is talking about Give to the Max Day for 3 days or, you know, a full week or what have you. So think about using those things all together for your fundraising strategies. It is recommended that you do at least 4 direct mails that are direct asks, as well as 4 mailed pieces that are more of those like impact driven, inspirational pieces. Here's what you've helped us do. And actually, I'm going to correct myself. Put your donor in the driver's seat. It's not what you helped us do. It's what you made happen. So really make sure that you're directly saying, you made this possible. You made XYZ possible, and really put them at the center of that story. So I know that that was super speedy, and just want to open it up for some questions that folks might be having. I do have some information about, you know, platforms. I think that question came up earlier, both ticket selling and ways that you can like be behind a paywall, things like that. But I also know we're out of time.
Yeah, if folks need to hop off now, that is no problem at all. You know, as we said before, this whole session is recorded, so it will be available to you if you want to catch the last last few minutes at a later time. That will all be available on the website in a bit. But we do have a good question. Jane asks, how important are incentives to generating donations? Things like mugs, free tickets, etc.
What research is showing is that in general, if folks are already engaged with you, they don't need a thing. And actually might not even want you to offer the thing. So if you're gonna do that, make sure there's an option to opt out of that. The other thing to keep in mind with incentives like that is that it needs to be under $15. Otherwise, it needs to be removed from the value of the gift. So if somebody gives you a $100 gift and they get a mug that's worth $20, I don't know, it's a fancy mug, then they actually only get tax credit for $80. So those are some things to consider. I would also say that I love the NPR model. I love my NPR socks, okay? I get them every year, and yes, they are taken out of my donation. I don't feel guilty about it. I love my socks, okay? But I would say that that is really a great tool to gain acquisition level donations. And again, as you establish a relationship with that donor, learn more about that donor, deepen their education about the work that you're doing, you might need those incentives less and less. Great question.
Katherine, can you share a little bit about what is coming up next for folks who are needing to pop away here? We've got 2 more of these kinds of sessions coming next week. So we have another basic internet literacy and online funding models happening on Wednesday, December 16th. So part of that session you've already heard, but if you need to pop in for the basic internet literacy, that'll be at 10 a.m. on the 16th. And then Wednesday, the 16th in the evening is virtual events. You'll be hanging out with me again if you want to do that. But then also Brian will be sharing more about creative online programming. So each of these sessions, you know, we're kind of repeating some content, but in terms of who shows up, sometimes the engagement's a little different and the conversation's a little different. So if you want to, you know, kind of take in these sessions again, you can do that, or just pop in for the ones that you've missed. There are options to do that next week. Yeah, anything else, Catherine?
No, I mean, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. Thank you for letting us know in chat what's working for you, and giving us some great examples. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. It's okay to ask.
It's okay to ask. Catherine and I will stay on the call a little bit. So if any of you have particular questions or things that you want to raise or get our brains on for a little bit, we can hang out for a little bit if you're interested. Otherwise, you're free. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you showing up this morning. Zoom is a thing. You could use it or not. I'm in the or not camp personally, but that's my bias. Anyway, thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great Friday. I'm just looking through some of these chat comments.
Yeah, there's some great stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Website and Facebook page of visual artist Sheila Asato.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, interactive classes. I'm just gonna copy that link for myself. Check that out later.
Exactly. I see we've got a few of you hanging on here, hanging out.
We've been using all of these emails, social media with video, great. And even hard copy. Oh, right. And then someone was asking about the difference between video and, you know, a direct mail appeal, I think. Was that the question somebody had?
Yeah, and sort of integrating them all. And we do have a question that popped up in chat here. Can you talk a little bit more about social media donations? And then I also see this question about what do you suggest instead of Zoom for a maker event? So we can certainly get to both of those. If those of you who are sticking around, if you have other questions that you want to pepper in chat, and then we can kind of answer as many of those as we can in a short time here, that's great.
Yeah, so as far as social media asks, again, I would say that it's a little bit more effective if you have it linked to some other channels. Research shows that a mailed piece going out first, followed up by additional channels, which might be email, might be social media, is the most effective way to roll out a campaign. So if you're able to do that, if you have the resources to do that, that's a great way to do that. And then make the messaging and maybe even the visuals feel cohesive between those channels. So that's really what I mean by omni-channel marketing, and in this case, omni-channel fundraising. So yeah, if you've got like a particular project that you're fundraising for, make sure that that letter, that email, and your social media campaign is focused on that, so that no matter where the person is seeing the ask, it feels the same and feels like your ask. Does that make sense? I think it's a little bit harder to do social media campaigns as standalones, just because there's so much noise out there. And you know, if we think again about the past presentation, it takes like 7 to 12 interactions with your donor to like actually get their attention. So that's why these multi-channel and omni-channel campaigns are so effective, so much more effective than one channel alone.
We do also have a question, maybe you know this, I don't have any knowledge in this area, about do's and don'ts for pull tab fundraising. Do you know anything about that, Catherine?
I don't know a ton about it. I do know that there are some sticky rules about what you can do for raffles. And so you're just going to want to make sure that you get some good counsel from someone who knows what those rules are. You know, I think there's some information that you can like bypass that if you say that there's not a donation required to enter the raffle. But again, I would encourage you to seek out some counsel to understand those rules and the hoops that you need to jump through in order to do that.
Any other questions that we can can answer for anybody. We have a raised hand. David, was that your question about the pull tabs? Where are you?
Yep, I'm good.
Okay,
I
great.
was just thinking about how, almost all of youth baseball in America is funded on pull tab charitable gaming.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't even know how you break into that racket as an arts group, but
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not
and
sure.
not every state has the same laws around raffles and enter to win type things. So it varies across state lines. But I do know in Minnesota, there are some special hoops that you do have to jump through if a raffle is the way that you'd like to go. Yeah, Sarah, were you going to say something about the maker event and using something other than Zoom?
I can. It just says born, so I see you there. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and unmute and share a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm with the Mankato Makerspace.
Okay.
So we have had, obviously, to cancel our artists' events, and we are putting on our first virtual event with Zoom. And I'm, other than just attending meetings, I'm new to Zoom, but now I'm a host all of a sudden. So somebody said it's messy. It is messy. And I'm wondering if Google Meet would be better. We want to keep doing this, and we want to do it rather than just have a click on this and you'll go to their website. We want the interaction with the artists.
Mhm.
It's just, that's what we're all about, is supporting the artists and making that connection to the public. So I don't know, is Google Meet better? Is something else better? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they all have their positives and negatives, right?
Yeah.
So one of the challenges with Google Meet is that you can't record your sessions unless you have like a super fancy business enterprise account or something. So there's a fee, significant fee associated with that, whereas Zoom will allow you to record things, in a pro plan, which is fairly, not super cost prohibitive. I think some of it just depends on what you're trying to do. So, are you trying to build kind of a community atmosphere where everybody's kind of on the same level and participating together, and you're seeing everyone who's, doing this together? Or are you wanting to do a bit more where like you bring in a guest artist or two and they're showing you what they're doing, but you don't need to then monitor people who are participating, whether they're doing the same thing, right? So I think some of it is are you structuring it as sort of a hands-on class where everybody kind of needs to have their videos on, or are you structuring it as we want to have a few people on and then also, have people participate maybe in a stream or something like that. So some of that depends on structure. If you wanted to do where you'd have a couple of guest artists kind of showing things and encouraging people to participate at home, but don't necessarily need to like check in with those individual people, you could do something simple like a StreamYard, and that gives you a lot more functionality to show different things. But it doesn't have a great functionality to like see everybody's faces like you do in a Zoom meeting. So it just depends a little bit on what you're trying to do. Google Meet might be worth a try, but some of it is also just, what are your people comfortable with? And if they're comfortable with Zoom, then you might be stuck.
And I would add that there are some platforms that are starting to figure out the social components a little bit better than Zoom or Google Meet. So look into Attendify, and then also Gather. And what I'm also hearing about that is that it's a little bit better for just that interaction. So as Sarah was saying, it might depend on what the type of thing that you're trying to present is, but Attendify or Gather might be a great option for those teaching sessions that you're putting out there, or like the conversational pieces that you're doing with artists and things like that. So those are a couple that come to mind. I honestly don't know whether they are something that you have to pay for or if there's a free plan, but worth checking out.
Yeah,
Katherine.
thank you. We are actually doing separate breakout rooms for each artist to
Gotcha.
sell their product.
Got it.
Yeah.
A little more complicated. I don't even know that Zoom or that Google Meet offers a breakout. I don't
Not
think
that
they
I've
do.
seen, not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah, so you'd have to set up separate ones for each. That could get complicated. So Katie has a couple of great questions, Catherine, for you, I think. Do you have some sample organizations that you could direct us to that have examples of online pleas or cohesive campaigns, omni-channel marketing, that kind of thing? And then what are the thoughts on messaging, the honesty of the financial need for an arts org right now versus sort of more positive messaging, kind of where do you hit the happy medium on that?
Yeah, those are great questions. And so I would say, as far as organizations, I know this is not necessarily arts related, but these are nonprofits that I follow. Animal Humane Society does a fantastic job in their storytelling. So every time they send me a direct mail ask, I'm sitting here looking at one right now. Here's the little ask letter. There goes the dog again. And then here's the little piece that shows me a picture of this animal who they were able to take care of because of my donation. You know, they say you a whole bunch of times. You, thanks to the generosity of sustainers like you, we have so much to celebrate as we end the year. So this is all themed around their calendar year-end campaign. So that's one that I look at frequently, and NPR is another one. And again, I know I'm talking about organizations that may have way more resources than some folks on this call, but all of this is scalable. All of this is scalable. If you don't have the, you know, human power to do 21 asks, that is 100% okay. But are you even doing 5? Could you do 7? Could you do 10? So think about that. And so I really appreciate those organizations and think that they do a really great job of doing the omni-channel marketing for fundraising. And then I would also just say, look at what you get. You know, who do you follow and what inspires you? So as far as messaging, honestly, I'd say keeping it positive is really important right now. If you're really in a situation where you need emergency funds, I would say keep that circle pretty small. Reach out to people you know really well, have a great relationship with, and talk to them in that way. And I'm not saying that because you shouldn't be transparent, but also to a certain extent, it's like, not everybody needs to know how the sausage is made, you know? So I would just say for broad appeals, really making sure that it's a positive statement about what you're able to do because of being funded by fantastic people like your supporters. So whether that's educating XYZ number of kids and adults about your artwork, or, you know, providing free arts lessons, or, you know, whatever that is, like really focus on that. And that's the inspiring stuff.
Cool. All right. I think that's kind of all the questions that that we have here. So I'm gonna reclaim host responsibilities, Catherine, so that we can we can end this, and I can pull the recording down and get all of that up and ready to go. David does ask, does any organization still on here network through your local Chamber of Commerce? That's a great question. So if anybody else does that, yay, nay?
I mean, it is a good idea.
Not so much.
If you're not,
right.
Look into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Well, thank you all for hanging out a little afterwards. Hope that was helpful. And we will probably see you on a future stream or event. Phase 4 is coming soon in the new year. So look forward to that. And thanks for your time today. Really appreciate you being here. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end. And I saved the chat real quick. So we have that should we ever want it. But all right, cool. Good job.
Thank you.
All right. I'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.